ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you?
It's time to flip a coin and find out.
Well, we need to know what we're calling it for here.
We're calling it to see who's got the best sports knowledge here on the Coin Flip with Martin Kelly
and Jacob Zimmerman.
Flip it again.
Welcome on back. It's the Coin Flip Podcast. Jacob Zimmerman, Martin Kelly, ready to break down another fantastic week of football in the National Football League, of course. Martin wasting no time, jumping right into things. We had a pretty solid week. We had some close games. We had some blowouts. Martin, you had yourself quite a week. I did not. We'll show the records in just a moment. But Martin, as usual, what game stuck out to you from week 5?
Well, obviously, the one game I'm going to is the game that started the entire week because we saw, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the MVP finally standing out amongst the crowd. Justin Fields proclaiming it on Thursday night with his actions, throwing to DJ Moore, 3 touchdowns, 230 yards for 8 balls that were caught by DJ Moore. The MVP season's right on schedule for Justin Fields. We're gonna win the rest of the season. Not a game we'll lose ever again until we make the playoffs. We're gonna be the first team to go 0-4 and make the playoffs. It's just good to be a Bears fan. So that was the top of the list. There was a lot of other good games in the NFL. The Broncos and Jets game, that was fun to watch. It was fun to watch Jamar Chase go off for 15 catches and for as many as he did. I got to watch the Packers embarrass themselves last night. That was fun to watch. In case for Jacob, the Raiders won that game, so I got that pick wrong, and Jacob got that pick right. Baltimore and Steelers, that was a fun game. The Saints game was a fun game. The Colts game was a fun game. Jags Bills to start the morning, that was fun. It was a good amount of fun games on the NFL schedule.
I'm trying to get my palm off of my forehead after that Bears take, but I'll continue as Martin, you had the Packers, you got that one right. I got the Raiders wrong. We'll go ahead and show it here. Martin, you won the week, my man. You went 8-6. I had a disaster week going 5-9 in just the 14 matchups. There's 15 now this week. Only 2 teams have buys. We'll cover that all here on the Coin Flip Podcast. Week 6 picks, but still in our week 5 talk here, Martin. You got 2 underdog picks. Of course, the Bears. You might have been the only NFL fan breathing air to pick the Bears and get that one correct. So congratulations to you, maybe outside of the Windy City there. And then, of course, the Saints were an underdog by the time the game rolled around. The Saints walloped the New England Patriots. I did not see that one coming. A lot of my picks I think I'll make, Martin, and I'll sit back and I'll think about it. And we do these picks, very in advance. We try to get these out a little early, do them before Thursday Night Football and everything like that. But that does allow for a lot of time to set in. A lot of times the spread will kind of change a bit. I'm not trying to make a ton of excuses here for our picks. We're average. We're average pickers. We're not excellent, but we're not trash. But things can happen, like quarterbacks getting ruled out. So I'm looking for a bounce back week, Martin, to say the least.
Absolutely. I said it in my little spiel there. You got the Packers-Raider game wrong. So the Raiders won last night. The Packers threw that game away. So you got the win. So you went 6-7. I went 7-9.
No, Martin. Look at the screen share, man. They're on the thing. You went 8-6. I went 5-9. Count them up here. I got Lions, Dolphins. We both got the Lions and Dolphins correct.
Yeah, but I'm saying the Raiders won.
Is correct. But Martin, that was it. That was the only things we got correct, both of us. We both whiffed on the Jags and the Colts, the Steelers and the Falcons, the Bengals, although neither of us really doubt Joe Burrow long term. Martin, kind of an interesting week for us.
Absolutely. It was interesting because of how many games went down to the wire. The Falcons game went down to the wire. The Steelers game went down to the wire. The Colts game went down to the wire. There was a good amount of games that had like last minute, couple minutes left in the game implications that could have given us either 12 wins or 5 wins.
Of course, the Jags got Sunday off to a hot start across the pond once again on back-to-back weeks. I'm sure they'll be enjoying things once they get back home. The Colts pulled off an upset. That was a close contest. The Steelers' defense, it wasn't Lamar Jackson seeing ghosts, but it was his receivers seeing ghosts all Sunday. That was rough. And the Jets took care of business in quite a miserable game. But Martin, without further ado, looking at our overall picks here, I still have the lead even after my abysmal week, 47-31 overall. You kind of flip those second digits around, Martin, and you are 41-37 overall. So you are beginning to nip on my heels if you can get another week win. But Martin, without further ado, let's move on to week 6. And we're starting off with the Thursday night game, as I am not going to forget the timer here in the first time around. Broncos at Chiefs. Mahomes and Kansas City are a monster favorite. And Martin, we won't spend too much time on this one. The Broncos are looking very poor. A lot of the talk with Denver right now is, what are they going to look like at the end of the season? Are they going to be in the conversation for the number 1 overall pick? It could happen. I think Sean Payton maybe has a little bit too much pride to let that happen. But this is not going to be one of those games where they pick off the Chiefs. People might point to this contest like the Colts contest from last year where the Chiefs lost. Now, I can see Kansas City not living up to a 10.5-point favorite. I could see the Broncos covering. And even if Travis Kelce wants to take a week off with what's going to be a lower ankle sprain, he should be fine. But if that's connected to his knee injury at any, that could be a problem, the knee, more than the ankle. But long story short, Martin, I'm going to roll with the Chiefs.
I'm going to roll with the Chiefs as well. There's not a whole lot to say about this game right here. As much as, I feel for Sean Payton coming out of retirement, taking a chance, seeing if he can revive, a team and how much of a disaster season they had the year before. I understand that, but the Chiefs are just so much better. I'm taking the Kansas City Chiefs.
Quick and concise, more than I probably should have been on that Thursday night football matchup. I don't know how the ratings are going to look like on that. Much less the international game. Another one, Martin. How about this? The NFL really making a push to get fans worldwide involved. I know they don't really like the term football that we use, but Ravens and Titans, another international series starting at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time out here, Martino. It's going to be tough to pick the Ravens in this type of game. We just saw Baltimore have a low-scoring contest. I have said this, I think last week, maybe even earlier on the podcast. I like the Titans in these close games, and why they couldn't quite get it done, even against the Colts, who are banged up at quarterback. The Colts have a really nice, rushing attack with Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor practically being the backup running back. A lot of points in that game. I'm not gonna hurt the Titans too much. I think the Ravens have some question marks on the outside. Who knows what the heck is going on with Odell Beckham Jr. and when this guy is going to be able to stay healthy long term. I think Martin, he is under 100 yards total receiving on the season. Although he's missed a game here or there, and I think he came back and got hurt again. But that's a fat contract he's on. Zay Flowers, I love this guy. But Mark Andrews doesn't seem to have the same impact he once did. And even if that Ravens, defense is still above average, I like Derrick Henry. I like the Titans to pull out a close one. I'm going to keep riding with Mike Vrabel until they prove me right.
Ooh, this is a tough one. I'm not going to lie about that. And the only reason why this is a tough one is because you mentioned the Ravens defense, and it's been strong this year. It hasn't, completely bent over, but there have been moments for this Ravens offense to show some type of, life in the first game. And then I think it was their game when they went 3-1. I think that was week 3 or something like that when they got their third win. Week 4, I apologize. So, this one's a tough one, and the reason why I'm taking a little longer on this is because if you go back to the game last week, if you looked at a stat, play action passing for the Tennessee Titans. They had over 180 yards in play action passing and almost 2 touchdowns. When they went from shotgun or standard passing, they had under 100 yards passing. Ryan Tannehill can't do it without some play action movement to get everyone to move out of their positions and give him the open lanes. I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to pick Baltimore. I think Lamar Jackson does enough, and I think Ryan Tannehill turns the ball over. Give me the Ravens.
Great insight from Martin Kelly there with the Titans offense. And speaking of offenses, both of these offenses have not been wowing everybody, but they have, done a decent job of getting their team to a decent record for two mediocre franchises at the moment, in this moment in time in 2023. Martin, Atlanta is a 2.5-point favorite at home against the Commanders. Vegas doesn't know what's going to happen in this game, but I have a feeling I do. I think the Commanders are going to bounce back. I know they kind of had a rough week losing to the Bears. I think that one is really going to hurt beneath the skin, and they'll find a way to take out their frustrations. I'm talking about Brian Robinson. I'm talking about Terry McLaurin. Both these guys are going to bounce back, have huge fantasy days for me. And I don't trust in Desmond Ridder. And another theory I kind of have, this is almost like a regular season baseball theory, of there's just so many games, and all these teams' records finish pretty darn close to 500. And if one team's 3-2, the other team's 2-3, the spread's even. I'm gonna just make it work out. They're just all they're gonna have the same record after this one, Martin. I'm gonna go with the Commanders getting the road victory in Atlanta.
I'm going to go with Atlanta. What I saw in this game versus Texans gives me a little positivity in the sense that maybe, just maybe, Arthur Smith has finally got out of his own way and is allowing the Atlanta Falcons offense to thrive. Bijan Robinson has been amazing. I feel for Tyler Algier. He's getting a little buried in the backfield because of all the carries Bijan's getting. He's the bigger player and the more important player. But I think if Ritter doesn't turn the ball over and can actually continue to play somewhat, not even if he gave me 50% of what he did last week, I think that's so much better than the Commanders. Their offensive line for the Commanders gave up 4 sacks against the Bears, a team that only came in with 3 sacks. They're abysmal up front. The Commanders have gotten lucky this year with a couple wins. Atlanta's the better team.
The Bengals have another pivotal contest. This one's at home against the Seattle Seahawks, who are looking like they're continuing on their surprise run from 2022. Martin, the Bengals are a 3-point favorite at home, and this comes down to one question. Was last week against the Arizona Cardinals a game where Cincinnati finally got their stuff together, where Joe Burrow finally got healthy, where Jamar Chase finally clicked into regular season form, where the offensive coordinator finally got a control of the new playbook? Or was last week a fluke win for a team that's no longer what it once was? We find out this week. This is a huge contest. The Bengals still feel like their backs are against the wall. I know their schedule gets a little tougher here coming up. But Martin, I'm looking at the injury report. Obviously, we're recording this on a Tuesday. But even if all these guys play, they're going to be banged up a little bit. I'm looking at 5 questionables, and 4 of them are in the Seahawks secondary. 3 corners and Jamal Adams, a safety. It's going to be hard to stay in front of Jamar Chase. And if T. Higgins comes back, and if he plays in Week 6, and if they're using Joe Mixon correctly, and the Cincinnati defense holds Seattle under 24, under 27, something like that, I could see Cincinnati getting this win. I could see Geno Smith maybe having an off night. I'm going with the Bengals.
Bengals or Seahawks? That's an interesting question. You mentioned the injuries on the side of the ball. The Seahawks, obviously, with the demolishing of the Giants previous Monday night. The Bengals, obviously, Jamar Chase, 24/7, 7-11, always open, 15 receptions, 3 touchdowns. I agree with you. If T. Higgins is back and Seattle is hurt that bad in the secondary, I think the Bengals win this game. but I would not be surprised if Seattle finds a way to win this one. That Seattle offense can put up points, but at the end of the day, the Bengals are my pick.
We are rolling with the orange and black. Orange is the new black there in Cincinnati. Jacksonville facing off against their bitter rival in the Indianapolis Colts. And Martin, this is a confident pick for me. I'm rolling with the Jags. I think they've started to figure things out. They are just the older brother to the Colts, flat out. The AC joint is going to cause Richardson to miss, I think, even more time than Derek Carr did, which is going to be really unfortunate for Indianapolis, given perhaps their long-term plans with him. I think in the short term, they're still going to be okay with Gardner Minshew. But if Trevor Lawrence has started to gather rhythm like he did late last season, if Calvin Ridley can, reel in these catches that are hitting him right in the hands, if, Zay Jones can get healthy, if this defense can do just about anything, force one turnover out there. So I think the Jags are going to pull this one off. They're back here in the United States, especially at home. It's going to be a real true home game for them this time. I like the 4.5 as well. I'm rolling with the Jags.
If history has taught us anything, these Jaguars and Colts games somehow find a way to either be really close or blowouts. Obviously, we saw week 1 with Trevor Lawrence and Anthony Richardson going out there. Anthony Richardson, his debut was spectacular, but he came up short and took the loss. The Jags walked away with that win. But there's been a good amount of history between these two teams over the last 20 years of wins and losses. I'm going to rock with the Jaguars as well. They're down in Jacksonville. They're in their secondary home because at this point they are the London Jaguars. They just play in Jacksonville because they haven't approved the move yet. The Colts will be fun with Gardner Minshew. I think he gives them another perspective that teams don't have a lot of, but at the end of the day, the Jags win.
So back-to-back common picks for Jacob and Martino as we're moving through now our 7th prediction of Week 6 in the National Football League here on the Coin Flip Podcast. And another contest here on a Sunday. This one's going to be in Miami. It's my Carolina Dreadful Panthers. That's one of the biggest spreads you're going to see. That's the biggest spread you'll see all week. One of the biggest spreads you'll see all season. 13.5 for Miami.
The Buffalo one down below.
Martin, I could see... Oh, you're right. Yeah, 14. Yeah, good point out of that. I could see this spread moving even more, Martin. I think it's going to be 14.5. It's a little side prediction on this contest by the time Sunday rolls around, because there's no reason to pick the Panthers. If Andy Dalton somehow rolls out there, then there's a better odds for the short term. They're just not figuring out things offensively. The defense is legit, but it doesn't have a chance to prove it when they're constantly punting the football offensively. I think Devon Achane, I think Tyreek Hill are locks to go 100+ in their respective categories. This is just going to be a nightmare down in South Beach, Miami.
Jacob, I'm sorry for how the season's going for you. And honestly, I don't wish your team to go winless. No one deserves to go winless. Even if your team sucked, at least if you get 5 or 6 wins on the season, at least you have something to cheer for. And believe me, I've been there, done that. It's just not a good feeling when you see no wins. Obviously I'm going with the Dolphins, but if you ask me, Jacob, what should happen during this game is Frank Reich should sit there with the tablet and a pen and just write down every single little thing he sees what the Dolphins do offensively, because he can just copy and paste that and put it in his offense. A short quarterback that has got a strong arm, great, I got that same thing. I got to look at these lethal wide receivers, their drawing, their run designs, and all that stuff. I'm going to put all that in my offense, and we will succeed, because he has not the same players, but DeAndre Swift's not a terrible running back. They don't have the greatest wide receivers, but Adam Thielen can still get open. Take down what the Miami Dolphins are doing, put that somewhat in the Carolina's offense, and let's see if it works, because right now nothing's working at all. We'll see what happens with the Panthers. Dolphins win big.
It's Sanders or RB. Yes, great point, Mark. I think Frank Reich should take all the notes across the sideline as he possibly can. It's a special thing going on there in Miami. Gotta
They're
love
the
it.
number one
Gotta love it.
scoring
Unless
offense.
you're a
They're the number
Panthers
one
fan, you
passing
need him.
offense, and they're number one in total offense. They're lighting up the entire league.
McDaniel's his own fun sideshow as well. So I'll watch that game. I'll probably have fun watching the highlight plays, even if we're getting smacked. As the timer rolls there. And Martin, I've already penciled you in here for the Bears and Vikings matchup since I 100% know your prediction, especially with the claims you made here at the start of the podcast. But Minnesota, no Joe Biden reference right there, -2.5 for the old Kings, the Vikings. Kirk Cousins is going to have to throw the ball to Alexander Mattison in the check down. He's going to have to throw it to KJ Osborne on these out and corner routes. He's going to have to find a way to get it done. Dare I say, maybe a slight sizzling Bears, not a hot Bears. You can't be hot after your first win of the season in Week 5, but you can have a little sizzle, a small little sizzle going on there, and I think Kirk Cousins is going to find a way to cook even in that little sizzle and send your Bears back home packing. So I'm going to go with Minnesota, despite everything that's happening. Hopefully Justin Jefferson can do a couple gritties on the sideline still. Maybe with the crutches to put some inspiration on the road, because they're going to need it in the cold weather city in Chicago. But nevertheless, I'm going to roll with the Vikings, and Martin's going to tell me why I'm wrong.
I'm not going to tell you why you're wrong. That's not a bad pick at all. I mean, honestly, the Vikings and the Bears are honestly the same, where they have potential on offense. Their defense is like Swiss cheese. There's too many holes between it, and honestly, there's just not been a whole lot of fun football to watch this year. So I don't disagree with you with picking the Vikings. I'm picking the Bears, obviously. Justin Jefferson is reportedly hurt. Kirk Cousins is struggling. That defense is near, if not the very bottom of the league. There has not been enough success. If you look at the stats here real quick, Jacob, Kirk Cousins has only had 3 wins in Soldier Field. 2 of those wins came with the Washington Commanders. He's only gotten 1 win in Chicago with the Vikings. That says enough to me. My secondary is getting healthy. Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, both Eddie Jackson are coming back this week. I'm getting reinforcements. Tevin Jenkins is in the offensive line. We're getting healthy at the right time. Unfortunately, I don't have a running back. I'll talk to Jacob about getting a running back later after this podcast. Nonetheless, Bears win.
Nice stat there with Kirk Cousins. I didn't know that one, but we're going to see what happens. That could be a low-scoring, close 17-13 type game that we just saw on Monday Night Football. A game that's not going to be close is the 49ers and the Browns, as we just beat the buzzer. Browns are coming off the bye week. Before that, they're coming off of an emotional week without Nick Chubb, although Ford's been looking great. Martin, I think the 49ers are going to continue to roll, and I guarantee you that everybody who's listening to this podcast can go up and look at this spread, and it's no longer going to be 5.5. I think it's going to continue to move, probably even to 7 by Sunday. The Browns have a nice defense, but we just saw the 49ers annihilate the Cowboys defense that's looked as good as anybody through the first 5 weeks of the season, or 4 weeks of the season. So Brock Purdy is doing Brock Purdy things. He's not turning the ball over. He's executing exactly like they need him to. Too many people in the media are spending time just rambling about these big market teams when there's really not a whole lot of stuff to talk about with the 49ers. Yes, some people are going a little bit, too far into the spectrum of saying Brock Purdy is the MVP, even leading candidate over McCaffrey, which I would disagree with. But we can't sit here and just say, oh, Brock Purdy this, Brock Purdy that. What would he be on the Patriots? What would Mac Jones be like in San Francisco? I'm tired of it. Let's not do that. Brock Purdy's doing what he's doing. Deshaun Watson. He's got a week. He had a week to sit and relax and watch DTR just get throttled out there on the turf. Now he has the bye week. Can he have another performance like he did a 300-yarder not too long ago, a couple weeks back? I don't know, and I don't think it'll happen against the San Francisco 49ers. I don't see why San Fran doesn't roll them like they just rolled the Cowboys and everybody else this year. So, 49ers.
I am looking at all of the reports on, Deshaun Watson. It looks day to day with a rotator cuff. Rotator cuffs are serious issues. They're not fun because you can't rotate your entire shoulder to get your rotation from your elbow to your arm to your hand to your release, and it messes up all the timing. I'm going to rock with the 49ers as well. I love DTR. I think he's a future quarterback in this league because of what I saw in the preseason, because of what I've seen from his composure. Though he got, killed in a game before, nonetheless, I'm still picking the Niners. Brock Purdy has been efficient. I don't care what they call him, a game manager or not. More game managers have won Super Bowls than, the elusive get out of the pocket and run type quarterbacks. As long as you can get the ball to the players at the right time and they score, who cares? A win is a win.
And Martin, if Deshaun Watson does indeed not play, the 49ers are going to win by at least 15 points. Moving on to a game that probably will not be decided by 15 points, and that is the Saints. The Saints, for the first time last week, scored more than 20 points in a game. They failed to do that all season, and they did it in the second quarter at Belichick. So is that the Patriots season absolutely lost? Is that the Saints, finally figuring things out? We're going to find out here in this Texans game. The Texans coming off of a tough loss. C.J. Stroud rallied in the fourth quarter, but it wasn't enough. A field goal response by the Falcons got them that narrow victory that somehow didn't cover the 2.5-point spread. But nevertheless, the Saints are a slight favorite in this moment in time. We'll see what happens by Sunday. But here on Tuesday, this is about as close as a matchup all week long. This is a tough one to pick. This is a 50-50. This is a coin flip pick here on the Coin Flip podcast. I'm flipping it up, and it's landing on C.J. Stroud and the Texans. He's going to continue his streak of not throwing a turnover. The kid looks great. I'm going to roll with a better quarterback, and that's already C.J. I'm rolling with Houston, Martin.
Wow, you stole my pick right from under me. I was going to do the same. I was going to pick the Texans.
Do it.
Because I
Double
believed
down.
in them. I can't do it. And the only reason why I can't do it is because if the Saints have finally figured out the run game issue, which has been somewhat of a mediocre, status this season, even with Alvin Kamara, if they figure out their run game situation and legitimately do it back-to-back games, they'll run all over this Houston Texans defense. The Falcons were able to do it, Bijan Robinson, and they still made it a close game. But that Texans defense is good. I'm rocking with the Saints because if Derek Carr doesn't turn the ball over and they get more than 3 touchdowns, he'll win the game.
So you're rocking with the Saints, correct?
Yes.
Martin, moving on to another doozy, another toilet bowl kind of game. And it's on CBS. Man, what a scheduling error that was preseason. Raiders coming off their abysmal primetime showing, as that could be well predicted, and the Patriots, of course. Martin, I'm going to try to find the over-under while I'm speaking on this, but yeah, Mac Jones is not a happy camper right now, 41.5. I think the under is going to certainly hit in that. And then Jimmy Garoppolo is not playing much worse. We're looking at a matchup that has both quarterbacks, their touchdown to interception ratio. There we go, Jacob. It's negative, meaning they have more interceptions than touchdowns. Neither of these running backs have had the seasons that they had last year. Ramondre Stevenson and Josh Jacobs were just terrorizing everybody's fantasy league last year. and that has not been the case. Poor Devontae Adams, he's just putting up empty stats pretty much out there, trying to do what he can do as a one-man show, well on the outside of that offense. This is even a coaching matchup nightmare. I mean, we're going to get a nice, McDaniels versus Belichick once again. That should be fun. That should be a nice rematch. But this is the disgusting game. Do I even have to pick this one? I'm going to go with the Raiders. That's how bad the Patriots have looked. Wow.
So if you really dissect and really pull back the skin in a sense to try to pull off some like Hannibal Lecter type stuff here to try to describe it here, Jacob, it's Tom Brady 2.0 versus Tom Brady 3.0. Jimmy Garoppolo was supposed to be the second coming of Tom Brady, and Mac Jones is supposedly the third coming of Tom Brady, and to solve all the New England Patriots issues and bring them back to, relevancy. Bill Belichick didn't want to trade Jimmy Garoppolo, but Tom Brady made enough of a fit in New England to get Jimmy out of there to go to San Francisco. So, which one of the reboots of Tom Brady is going to win this game? We saw what happened last year. Obviously, the interception that still is like baffling to everybody when it comes to highlights. I don't understand what the hell was going on, and Chandler Jones sure as hell doesn't understand it either, and Mac Jones for real doesn't understand it. So, based on that, I'm picking the Patriots. I'm just picking the Patriots. I want to see the Patriots do right. Maybe Mac Jones gets it finally in his head and says, screw it, Bill O'Brien doesn't know how to call an offense. I'll call the offense. Because it's not his fault. I don't blame Mac. They have no players down in New England. I know we got the timer, so I'll wrap it up here in a second. But my point is, Mac Jones is not the problem. They have no players. He's all by himself.
We need to retire the whole Tom Brady 2.0 and 3.0 things. The prototypes, the clones, did not turn out. They were an absolute disaster. Moving on to the Lions at Baker's Bucks. Martino, I think the Lions are going to have an easy victory here. I think the Bucks have had their nice moments. They had the bye week. They have a winning record at 3-1, and it's just really hard. It's really hard for me to see the Buccaneers continue this success, given how I thought they were going to do preseason. Baker Mayfield's only thrown 2 picks all year long to 7 touchdowns. Mike Evans is having himself quite a good season so far, 337 through just 4 games and 3 tuds. But none of it is going to be enough because Jared Goff has been balling his butt off. Montgomery finds the end zone in pretty much every game. If Amon-Ra St. Brown is good to go, he's questionable. I don't think this will be close. Jahmyr Gibbs was out last week. Hopefully we could see the rookie RB bounce back health-wise. But ultimately, nobody's going to guard Sam Laporta in that secondary at all. He's going to roll for another touchdown or 2. I'm rolling with the Lions.
In this one, Jacob, I am going to take the Buccaneers. And the reason why I'm taking them as one of my underdog picks in this one is because they're 2-0 against the NFC North. Obviously, they beat Kirk Cousins and Justin Fields. Nothing too spectacular there. But nonetheless, that defense did force Kirk Cousins to turn the ball over 3 times. And they did the same thing to Justin Fields. They forced him to throw an interception, and I think there was a fumble loss in that game as well. So that defense is still the defense. Baker Mayfield is not looking like Carolina Panthers, Baker Mayfield, or Cleveland Browns, Baker Mayfield, where he's lost. It looks a little bit easier for him to run the offense. As long as he still has Goodwin and Evans, they're still lethal. I want to see whether this Detroit Lions defense can contain those 2 guys. I'm taking the Buccaneers as one of my underdog picks.
Lions and the Cardinals. Rams about favored by a touchdown. Martin will start to kick in the Coin Flip podcast to a second gear here. I'll make this pick a little faster. The Cardinals have surprised some people, yes. but at a certain point, that locker room is going to start to fall apart. They're not 0-5 like everybody thought, but they're still 1-4. And even with these players hearing everybody saying that they're going to go 0-17, they're going to be the first team to go 0-17 ever, they have pride, and they're going to try to do a lot better than that. However, they're not fools, and they're not going to be happy with a 3-win season, and that's the path I think they still might be headed on somewhat until Kyler comes back. I'm rolling with the Rams. Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp have an argument to be already one of the best wide receivers duos in the league. If Stafford doesn't throw this one away, unless Dobbs somehow just has another miraculous performance like he's flashed, the Rams are going to win. I got the Rams.
I got the Rams as well. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Williams, Stafford, and Aaron Donald. That's enough to beat the Cardinals. Rams.
Moving on to the Jets, who are a massive underdog, as the Eagles, who are riding hot. A lot of people have had their complaints about the Eagles so far in 2023, but the record does not lie. They are undefeated for a reason, and that's kind of scary when a team's undefeated, but you have a lot of people in the media saying they're underperforming, and it's Zach Wilson. He looks a lot better than he did the first 3 weeks of the season. The last two have looked a lot better. However, it's not going to be good enough. And when you got Jalen Carter, throwing, ragdolling centers and guards to the turf. Just an absolute monster up there in the front. Unguardable. Defensive Rookie of the Year, lock it away. Swallow the key. The Eagles are going to be a nightmare for Zach Wilson and the Jets. Their only hope is if they get the running game established with Breece Hall. It's not Bryce Hall like every commentator wants to keep saying. That's so annoying. But I'm going to roll with the Jets to get swallowed up in New York City.
Also, I'm rocking with the Eagles as well. EGLES, Eagles, Eagles, Eagles. They're the better team than the JETS, 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 Jets. Zach Wilson will throw a couple picks. Sauce Gardner will throw his helmet on the sideline. Garrett Wilson's going to kill Zach Wilson after this week. And all is good in the world of the NFL when the Jets are down.
Another New York City nightmare. Daniel Jones doesn't have it much better right now. Martin, I'm curious to get your take on if Daniel Jones is yet another quarterback who you believe is a really a good quarterback, but is just being surrounded by miserable talent. I'm kind of curious to see what you have to say there. I think he's underperforming his contract. Everybody knows that. I think Daniel Jones has never been that guy who could lift up a franchise, just kind of keep him from drowning in the water. Things are going to get disgusting at Buffalo. That offensive line is looking bad. The only thing I'll say here is Buffalo is really banged up. They just lost some of their really key defenders for the season, and that might take an emotional toll on the locker room at some point. Daniel Jones, I believe, is still the rushing leader for the New York Football Giants. Yes, he still is. That's about as sad as can be for this team that's 1-4. I'll waste no more time with this pick. You know who I'm rolling with, Martin.
I'm doing the same thing. If you want to look through the Giants' history, Phil Simms, Jeff Hostetler, Eli Manning, Kurt Warner, Daniel Jones, they've had a list of terrible quarterbacks. It goes all the way back to when they had Frank Tarkenton, and they had him, and they won nothing with him. And yet Frank goes to Minnesota and goes to 4 Super Bowls and loses those. So go figure. The Giants can't really do anything with a quarterback that has anywhere close to 10% of a marginal amount of talent. They can only win with weird white guys that can throw a bunch of interceptions and somehow upset Tom Brady. And I don't know how they did that, so don't ask me. But nonetheless, Buffalo wins.
Well, I will say that Eli Manning was not terrible, but for our Monday Night Football pick, the last pick of Week 6 here on the Coin Flip Pick'em Podcast, Jacob Zimmerman, Martin Kelly. I have the season lead, but Martin just won last week. He's getting closer to me. I think about 6 games separate us. We'll see what the season series looks like next week, but without further ado, Dallas is a 2-point favorite facing the Chargers in LA, north of San Diego, after their bye week. So, Martin, I'm going to roll with the boys here. Given that they got embarrassed in prime time, they're going to have another prime time game. Back-to-back embarrassments. I don't see it happening. I don't see enough chaos going on across the line of scrimmage happening with the Chargers defense. Brandon Staley, you would think this guy could maybe, go to coaching school on a bye week, but I don't think the Chargers after a bye week are going to be much improved game plan wise. Justin Herbert, we'll see how he gets affected by Micah Parsons, but there's no longer Trayvon Diggs back there. This could be a shootout. This could be a high-scoring game. Maybe Dallas will force a couple turnovers. I don't know if Dak will throw it through the roof, but I'm going to roll with the Cowboys 31-28, something like that. I think they get it done, Martin.
Chargers are going to win this one, and maybe, just maybe, finally Dallas media will realize that Dak Prescott was the problem, not Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore was not the issue. Kellen Moore was not the issue with calling the plays or designing the offense or whatnot. Kellen Moore leaving the Cowboys, going to the Chargers, getting a real quarterback, getting some at least real offensive weapons, made him look better. Chargers, Justin Herbert throws for 4 touchdowns.
Of course, we got to talk just very briefly here on these bye teams. Can't forget about them. Packers and the Steelers. I almost feel like they are in a very similar position. Martin, they're both major franchises in the NFL historically. They have multiple Super Bowls. They are always in primetime games, even when they're bad. But recently, both have been good defensively and terrible offensively. And they have young quarterbacks who have shown really nice flashes and who also have looked atrocious. I'm talking about 3 interception games from Jordan Love. I'm talking about Kenny Pickett just closing his eyes out there and just hoping he connects in the gloves of one of his receivers. It's a tough spot for both teams. I think the Steelers have a better chance to make the playoffs than the Packers do. Martin, anything you want to say on these two teams in the bye week? What should they improve on?
Absolutely. The Packers don't work on anything. They've come up with a great plan, which is putting a career backup quarterback as a starting quarterback, and have convinced the media that it's all just by accident, that this is all just part of the plan, that Jordan Love's going through growing pains. No, he just sucks. That's plain and simple. So Packers, don't change anything. You're on the right trajectory. Lose all the games and make me a happy Bears fan. Over to the Steelers. Fire Canada. Fire Matt Canada today. Fire him tomorrow. Fire him the day after that. Fire him in the moment as he's calling a play. Fire him in front of everybody in the media. Just straight up put him in front of the media and just hold up a sign that says he is now fired, because he is trying to drain all the fun out of Pittsburgh. He is trying to ruin Kenny Pickett. He is trying to ruin George Pickens. He's trying to ruin Najee Harris. These kids are good players. Get rid of Matt Canada. If Kellen Moore doesn't get the head coaching job in Chargers, bring him to Pittsburgh and let him call that offense, because they'll explode and be better. Matt Canada is the problem. Mike Tomlin needs to do something about it today, tomorrow, Sunday, whenever it's going to happen, because Matt Canada sucks.
Martin Kelly bringing the insight here with the picks and even in the bye weeks here on the Coin Flip Podcast. Jacob Zimmerman, that's Martino. We are hoping for another solid week, hoping to both get double-digit picks correct. These are, once again, flat-out money line, outright predictions. Pick 'em, picks. Martino, another fun week in the books. Week 6 coming up. Any closing thoughts here on the podcast? I guess not. That's the Coin Flip Podcast. See ya.
Peace. Sorry.